have to take a step back for a moment and look at what the president is saying today through the prism of his own political history. This is a man who was elected by challenging Hillary Clinton's vote on the floor of the Senate to authorize the use of force in Iraq in 2002. He is now coming before the American people and saying, I'm not doing that again. I was opposed to that. I'm not George Bush. I'm not Hillary Clinton in 2002.
CNN's Gloria Borger trying to explain President Obama now as opposed to Senator Obama or candidate Obama back then when it comes to going to Congress to ask for the authorization of force. She went on to say this is a president who argues with himself on these foreign policy issues. With Miranda Khan back for hour 3, and there are 3 of us on the anchor desk as we are joined by political commentator Michael Reagan. You can find him on Twitter at Reagan World, but we find him right here this morning. Michael, it's good to have you right here.
In town, not in a little box in Los Angeles, which is nice. Yeah,
we're
good to see you.
Pleased to have you in from the left coast. And I just want to get your take on the president asking for the authorization to use military force against ISIS.
You know, it's interesting. He's been using military force against ISIS, last time I checked. He has the authority and the authorization already because of what was signed, back in 2002, to do exactly what he is in fact doing. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to have his own authorization that's watered down so that he can ultimately blame someone else for a failure that he is creating in this whole idea of going to war against ISIS. And he wants to make the Republicans the fall guy in all of this.
So what are your thoughts about the draft? Is it too broad, too limited?
It's stupid. It's not limited, it's not broad. The fact is, what he's saying is, give me the authorization to go to war against ISIS, but I don't want to put boots on the ground. I really don't want to carry out this war. I just want to look like I'm really doing something and bide my time till I get out of here in 2 years. You never go into a war situation. JD was a member of Congress and say to the enemy, by the way, in 3 years we'll be gone. You just don't do that. And you never take anything off the table. I think America is really getting tired of fighting wars and not winning wars. It's time to go back to winning wars instead of just fighting them and fighting them, fighting them for all time? It's silly.
Now, Michael, you might not be surprised to hear that your fellow Californian Nancy Pelosi has a different view on this. She says it won't take 3 years to beat ISIS. Senator Bob Menendez, who has been critical of the administration as the ranking Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee, had this to say about the length of time of the resolution. Let's take a listen.
Listen, it's aspirational, but you know, at the end of the day, one of the reasons that I put in my original authorization that we passed out of the committee 3 years is because it got you past this presidency, gave enough time for the next president to be looking at what they were engaged in, where we were at in the fight against ISIL, and make a determination.
So is it aspirational or purely political, the 3-year time limit?
It's purely political is what it is. I mean, look at this president. Look at his track record. How are we doing in Yemen these days? What was it? Our own guys turned in their weapons yesterday as we're getting out of Yemen? I mean, this is the president who doesn't know how to win a war. This is the president who's scared to death of his own military. He doesn't want to have anything to do with the military. And I think if we give him authorization under what he wants, it is going to be truly the death of the Middle East. It's time to start winning and quit fighting, but go and win a war. And you don't take anything off the table here and quit playing politics with the lives of American children. I tweeted not long ago, JD, and I tweeted this. I said, if I was a Gold Star mother, I would be marching on Washington, D.C. and saying, what the hell have you done? My children have died for this. We won the Iraq War, and this president has lost it.
What do you think is going to happen next?
Oh, I think there's going to be a great battle in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, you know Congress as well as anybody, JD, they may succumb to all this. I hope that they don't, because I think American people need to understand the president already has this authorization. Don't water down the authorization he already has. That's what he wants you to do. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I hope the Republicans don't do it.
And to think we called your dad the great communicator. Michael Reagan here, stating simple, profound opinions that he would say translates into truth, and I'm inclined to agree with a lot of what he says. We have more with Michael Reagan coming up to talk about what's in the headlines, what's on his mind, and what's in his heart. A rare occasion when he comes in from the left coast to be here with us at the anchor desk at Newsmax TV Central. So you stay tuned as we continue our conversation with our good friend Michael Reagan as we continue America's Forum here on Newsmax TV.
I think it's good news the president has made that submission. And I think he's right when he says the country is stronger when it acts, both Congress and the president together. And I would say that there's a pretty simple authorization he could ask for, and it would read one sentence. And that is, we authorize the president to defeat and destroy ISIL. Period.
Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, a potential presidential contender in 2016, saying that the fight against ISIS should be unconditional. With Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth back on America's Forum, and there is a third prominent person here at the anchor desk. It's our friend Michael Reagan. You can find him on Twitter at Reagan World. We're so pleased to find him in the flesh right here.
Good to be here.
Michael, as we continue this conversation, Marco Rubio says there should really be no limits on this authorization.
There shouldn't be. And this JV team that we're fighting, president's quotes, if I may say that, 3 years? I mean, how long did it take us to win the Second World War and a few other places? It's going to take 3 years, maybe more, to defeat ISIL or ISIS? I mean, doesn't everybody know if we really wanted to go in there and defeat ISIL, we could go in there and defeat ISIL. We don't need 3 years to do it if we wanted to do it. So why 3 years? And Marco Rubio is absolutely right. It's unconditional. Defeat ISIL and do it today.
How much of an issue is this going to come into play when it comes to the 2016 election?
Oh, I think it would be a huge issue because this is still going to be going on. And so you're going to have presidential candidates who are going to give you their opinion on what needs to be done. So it'll become a huge issue. That, along with immigration, would be huge issues in 2016.
Who do you think out of all the candidates are better equipped to handle foreign policy issues like this?
I think probably sitting in a governor's desk is probably the best place to look, where you've been in an executive position, because you're dealing with all of the yelling and the screaming and the negotiating. I think that's a good place to be. I think you get great input from members of the Senate, from Marco Rubio, the Ted Cruz's, Rand Paul's, and what have you. Let that give you input. I hate to see great people in our Senate and our House wanting to leave the Senate and the House, and hopefully their positions will be taken back by conservatives. That doesn't always happen. Give me a governor in the president's desk, and give me my Senate and the House that we have today.
Well, it's interesting, talking about the House, Congressman Lee Zeldin of New York raised an additional issue with the rhetorical fight over this authorization and the fight against ISIS. Let's listen to what Congressman Zeldin had to say, then we'll get your reaction.
You think it could have been deliberate that Jews were left out of the list of ethnic groups?
Well, I think when the White House is drafting a resolution for the authorization of force, that every single word, every phrase in there is done deliberately. It has to be. So they really need to answer why that was left out and what their thoughts are on the threat that ISIS has towards Israel.
Do you think the omission of harm to Jews and to Israel, do you think that was deliberate or just incompetence on the part of the White House?
Probably both. It's incompetence because it's not something they think about. It's really not something they care about and they think about. And so it's left out. And you know this. I mean, I know this from being the son of a former president. Everything is done and looked at by the people around you with 40 different eyes to make sure you get it right. And to put out a statement, to put out a declaration that does not bring that into account, especially with what's going on with Netanyahu, what's going on in Israel, what's going on in the Middle East. And I think we all know that the Middle East is all aimed towards the destruction of Israel. Maybe the president hasn't figured that one out yet, but he needs to.
What do you think will happen when Netanyahu comes to visit?
Well, I hope he still comes to visit, because we all know about that argument that's going on. There'll be an uproar. The Democrats will walk out, which I think is really...
Because you've heard the vice president said he won't be there.
You have a world leader coming to speak to a joint session of Congress. Is the vice president going to walk out on the Pope? I think he's coming to speak also at a joint session of Congress.
Right, September.
So do you believe in Catholicism? You don't believe in what's going on with Israel? Again, it's a slap on the face to Israel every time they get a chance. And I don't know, I got to tell you, I live in Los Angeles. Why any Jew in the United States of America votes for a Democrat is beyond me, absolutely beyond me, and beyond my friends in the Jewish community in Los Angeles too.
Do you think there's going to be a change, because it's generationally, it's been about out of every 10 American Jews, 7 vote Democrat, only 3 vote conservative Republican?
Yeah, I mean that is, it's absolutely mind-boggling to me that goes on, seeing how Israel is treated in such a way by this administration and by the Democrats.
Michael Reagan, we appreciate you being here, and we're glad you're even able to stay for an additional segment, because when we come back, we are going to talk with author Jay Cost about the cost of corporatism and the alliance of conservatives with big business. Did that lead to the dominance of the Washington establishment and cutting off the grassroots? We'll talk about that next as Michael Reagan stays with us and Jay Cost joins us.